Great. Can you hear me?
Good job.
Super. Right. But after hearing everybody at the beginning, I'm not actually sure that you really need me with my marketing message tips and with everybody doing so well with their businesses during COVID. But I wanted to take some time, and I just want to say thanks very much to Andrew for inviting me along and sharing about marketing message, because it is kind of so important to think about the message before you kind of go and use Ruth and you use Stephen then for doing all the kind of going to channels. So for the next 20 minutes, we'll have a little chat about it. And if you have any questions, then just kind of leave them to the end. And there is a little bit of interactivity, so we'll move on. So I kind of wanted to start with a little bit of a poem, and I'll read this out. So a lion met a tiger as they drank beside a pool. Said the tiger, tell me why you're roaring like a fool. That's not foolish, said the lion with a twinkle in his eye. They call me king of beasts because I advertise. A rabbit heard them talking and ran home like a streak. He thought he'd try the lion's plan, but his roar was just a squeak. And a fox came to investigate, had luncheon in the woods. The moral, when you advertise, my friends, be sure you've got the goods. So I wanted to start that off. With just telling you from the outset that if you get nothing else from this, I want you really to start thinking about owning your own message. And I understand that sometimes when we say those words as marketers, they sometimes can mean really nothing. But what I want you to think is that when things change after like the COVID and the pandemic, and I was just even talking to clients today, nobody really knows what's it going to be like when we kind of come out of this and what it actually really means. But when I'm talking to quite a few people, both here and in the States and in the UK, about marketing issues and what will it mean, and from what I'm definitely reading, what I'm seeing myself, is that we're all looking for something different. That it won't be just the samey, it'll be something different. And I just thought, well, if we have a look at what makes us different, then it will actually make us kind of come out of the running blocks, so to speak. So before I kind of go any further, I wanted to just tell you who I am, because Andrew kindly invited me on. I wrote a book, 31 Days to Write Better Copy. It's a best-selling author. Wrote another one, collaborative book, Behind the Scenes. I'm a TEDx speaker. I'm a professional speaker. I've got a podcast. It's called Let's Talk Marketing. Andrew was a guest. He was one of the first guests, and it's really gone from strength to strength. So I'm really delighted about that. And you know something's working when you get pitched for guests to be on your podcast. So I've gotten 2 of them in the last week. So that's pretty good. And then I own the award-winning Achieve Marketing. So that's pretty cool too. But basically what I do, and this is really key, I help you communicate your business, communicate your message and build a community of raving fans. And this is really what, if you were to ask me what I do, this is what I do. And it's easy. And it's one thing that I want you to think about. Like, some people will tell you that you should have one-liners, and people should tell you that you should have your elevator pitch or your 60-second pitch. And for those of you who are like, you know, in the BNI, and I think it is really important to have something that succinctly tells people what it is that you do. Simply that they'll be intrigued and they'll want to know more, or that they're not interested and they can move on, and then you don't have to waste time kind of talking to tire kickers. So one of the things that you will hear me say forever and a day, if you follow me at all, is that a confused mind never buys. And it's so important that you're clear on what it is that you do when you go out to market. And I think a lot of you will probably be aware of that. And Ruth and Stephen will certainly be able to share more of that later on too. But what I want you to think about, there's a few things I want you to think about tonight. And one of the first ones is the you factor, your differentiating factor. What makes you so different? And again, we all do talk about that, you know, as marketers, like, you know, you need to talk about your USP. What's your unique selling point, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I know sometimes it just then becomes words, because then you're like, I don't know what's different about me. So what I find is that I've got clients, they fall into 2 camps, right? One is, I don't know what makes me so different. And the other one's like, I am different because of something that's so generic that it's really just kind of, you're not different at all. And I know I can tell you something that I know everything that there is to know about differentiating yourself is because I am a twin. This is my twin sister, Lorraine. And so obviously for the last 44 years, we've been growing up together. And so we're still growing up, right? I haven't reached that stage where I'm a grown up yet, I don't think. But it's interesting because I kind of know, like, some people say, why are you qualified to talk about differentiate? And I was like, I have a twin. I have somebody who looks the spits of me. And we still get stopped in the street after all these years. But differentiating you is really going to be the difference between you and your competition as you get out of the running blocks, as I said before. And I am all on for a one-liner, and I am all on for 60 seconds, and I am all on for, like, the BNI, like the BNI 60-second, and what is it, the elevator pitch. But what I want you to think about, so we're going to take a different tack, is like really what energizes you. And I want you to think, like, use this time in the lockdown and in the pandemic. And obviously a lot of you are still busy or busier, which is wonderful. But I want you to start thinking about what it is that really energizes you. And it's not like, and you kind of think, well, what's that got to do with my message, Denise? Well, it has everything to do with your message, because going forward in the new normal, and I really don't like using those words, is that if you look at it, people are going to be, as I said, different. They're going to approach different work business. They're going to approach things differently. People aren't going to be going into offices as much as they used to be. They're going to be working from home. So this is all going to have a big impact on our business. And if you think about what energizes you, I had a client just there. We did a mentoring session, and we were talking about differentiation. And one of the things he said was like, do you know what? I just love getting up at the dawn, with the birds, and just, calm myself down and all that kind of stuff before the day comes. And I was like, we are so far apart, it's not even funny, because I would be a night owl. But I said, right, okay, why don't you use that in your message? And he was like, what? And I said, yeah, like there are other people. The world is split pretty much in two, isn't it? Night owls and early birds. So if you're an early bird, why don't you actually put that out in your message and say, you know what, if you're an early bird like me, and that's a Drogheda accent, I shouldn't really say bird. So if you're an early bird like me, then why don't you actually, I'm available for meetings at 7 in the morning or at 8 o'clock in the morning. That could be part of your message. So that's why I want to know, like, about what energizes you. And that's a simple example of what energizes you. It could be that, you love talking to people. Like for me, one of the good things about COVID is that some of my long-term clients from the beginning pretty much like said, hold on, Denise, stop the marketing. We're not doing any marketing. And I was like, holy moly, crapola, right? And but it's interesting because I had like been planning to like pivot into doing more mentoring and more advising, and that's exactly what I've been doing. I've got more calls for people asking for me to mentor them so that they can do it themselves, and that's been really a pivot. So in terms of like, so what energizes me, this telling people what to do, doing it not so much, but definitely telling people what to do. So that energizes me. So that means that's part of my message, and that's how that will all come in. So think about what energizes you, because it doesn't have to be in your one-liner, right? Or it doesn't have to be in your 60 seconds, but it could be part of your overall message that you put out there on your website, on your social media, on your LinkedIn page, because a message isn't just a one-liner. It's not like Nike's just do it. It's all that other stuff that goes with it. So I really would encourage you to spend some time thinking about what energizes you, because that will help come out in your messaging. Because the more words that you have showing the passion that you have for your business, the transformation that you make in your customer's business, they're all the words that will actually, because they'll be high energy words. If it's applicable to you, it'll be high energy words for you, and it will be like, people can't help but nod and see the passion that you have coming through from your message. So definitely I'd encourage you to spend some time on that one. So the next point I want you to think about are your values and what's important to you. Now, I know, again, we've all said this, before as marketers, but I do encourage you to take a little bit of time to think about your values and your mind, like, your values, and a little bit about, I suppose, about your mindset. Like if I go back and I tell you about that story about, like, there was one client of mine and she said, whoa, stop marketing, job done. And then we looked at my invoice, she looked at my invoice, and I'd be very transparent. And it's the only client that I had like left. We've been working together since 2015, and that's 5 years. So she was the only client that was left on an hourly rate. And so she actually had said, you know what, I don't think that you spent enough time on those hours or something like that. And I was like, that goes against all my values, because my values are like, one of my values would be honesty and integrity. I would never overcharge for anything. And so I don't like to be done. I don't mind paying extra, like a little bit of Chanel lipstick, right? A little bit, so I'm paying a little bit extra for the Chanel lipstick, but that's because I like the Chanel lipstick, makes me feel like, that I can actually have Chanel head to toe. But so honesty and integrity are two key values to me. And though I think that if you kind of write down what's important to you, again, that will help in your message, and you'll be able to write down copy that will be congruent with you and with who you want to achieve. Because one of the things I want to attract, one of the things I want you to think about is, yes, this is all good about marketing message and who you want to attract. But what I want you to think about also is who you want to repel. It's not necessarily about the attraction, it's about the repelling as well. So we've all, I think I can count on all of us, or I can assume that all of us have had tire kickers. And those people say, I'd love to take you out for a cup of coffee, Denise, this is what I'm planning to do. And you know what, none of us, I don't think, would mind at all sharing and helping people when they need it, right? I think that we'd all be like that as business owners. But at the same time, we've all had people that you do not want to have as customers. So when you're talking about attraction, what I want you to think about is, who do you want to repel? And your values and what energizes you should be thinking about that in those instances as well. So that's your values. And then the third thing I want you to think about, and it's like a simple little thing that I want you to think about, like, in terms of your marketing message now, is your dress code. Like, we've all had, like, we're all on Zoom these days. And so people are making assumptions on you, on your background, on your clothes and all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't mean to say like that that's part of your message, but it could be, and it should be, that if you are like, looking to, we all know this, and I've heard it, like, about ties for men and all that kind of stuff. But like, I suppose I put a tongue in cheek in here for you to kind of think about that. Like, with your message is your words, it's your one liner, but it's also how you present yourself. And I'm not going into brand, that's not what I'm doing. But also think about what your dress code could be and what message that you're sending. So that will be a really important one as well to think about, because this will all become part of the message about who you are and who you want to portray yourself as. So, and then the fourth one I want you to think about is, I want you to think about your competition. And a lot of people, when I give them this task, like I did a visibility challenge just a little while ago, and people said to me, why are you asking me to look at my competition when I'm talking about me? And it's really an understanding. It's an understanding of what other people are saying, not that you can compete or whatever that is, but just to be like, aware of what other people are saying. And I'll tell you what happened to me back years ago. Like, I set up my business in 2006. So I was a Fortune 500 marketer. I got made redundant. I thought, you know what people need? I'll tell you what they need. They need they need marketing for their small business. Now, bear in mind, I was a Fortune 500 corporate marketer, and I'd go into SMEs. So I thought I knew everything, but I didn't. But what I wanted to say about that was the competition. And I've lost my kind of train of thought because I just saw somebody yawning. Anyway, never mind, I'll come back to it. But competition is really important because yes, I know it was. So somebody had come out and said they have the client attraction model or method. And I said to myself, OMG, I can't say that. And so it took me ages to realize that, you know what, just because somebody else had said it doesn't mean to say that I can't say it. I just say it in my own way. So a lot of times we hold ourselves back by saying things, by not saying things, like what our competition is saying. And just because the competition is saying it doesn't mean to say that you can't say it, but you're just saying it in your own way, wrapped around your own values, wrapped around your own message, and wrapped around to say what energizes you. So I want you to think about your competition and do a little bit of research. And I'll tell you why, because this is a bit of a wordy slide, so my apologies about that. But when I was asked to do a workshop and a presentation with the tourism crowd, the tourism sector back last year. And so I did my own bit of research on websites. And let me just read these out, because we're going to have a little pop question after it. So let's all think about this, right? So these cottages are a haven of peace and tranquility away from the stresses of hectic life. Fair enough. This house is situated in a haven of beauty and tranquility where the pace of life is slow. Fair enough. And it offers a unique chance to get away from it all and experience the peace and tranquility that the surrounding scenery presents. Isn't that lovely? What are they saying? Now you could say, do you really know what they're saying? But the answer is they're all saying that they're havens of tranquility. And so it's only when you go looking at other people's messages and other people's copy on their website or their promotional material or all that kind of social media, LinkedIn, all that, the channels, that you'll actually start to see what people are saying. So this is what I mean by owning your own message. Fair enough if you want to sell a haven of tranquility, but you need to own your own message. And if they're all saying the same thing, then there's no differentiating factor. And you really have to start thinking about the differentiating factor, because the truth of the matter is that we buy from people that we like and trust. And we all know this because we like, and we get better results when we work with people who like us and who we like and who like us. So you need to capture you in your marketing material. And that's really what I want you to spend some time. So before you start putting stuff out in social media, and I know that Ruth is going to give us some really fantastic tips, as will Stephen, but before you kind of start going out and tell their channel, just think about you and what makes you different. Because when we come out of this recession, this thing, pandemic, whatever we call it, people are going to be looking for something different. So and I want you to all be I want you to all attract the right people. And one of the other things I want you to think about is the credibility that you have and the credibility that you provide. And it's not necessarily always about, I am the best auctioneer and I am the best architect and I'm the best printer and I'm the best person to give you experience. I don't really want you to say that I am the best of whatever. Well, I do, right? But I want you to back it up. But I also want you to back it up with client stories and the longevity of your business and how you transform people, because it's the credibility that will separate you as well from somebody else. Your competition, that. And of course, differentiation also means, it could be something as simple as your location. Let's not think about your location, where you're located. It could be your client base. So there are all the differentiating factors that we know of, right? So definitely don't dismiss those ones about your experience, your credibility, your location, your client base, what you do for people. This is all great because this is where you start positioning the value of what you do. So all of that kind of helps to create the value, the position, the value. And this is what I want to kind of draw your attention to. It's the value is right in the middle. So the value is your competitive advantage, but what makes you different. And it really kind of combines what we talk about. So how you're different. And that's why, look, if you think about how you're different, and if you just jot down some ideas, we could easily talk about them in the questions and answers now, but how you're different, this is really going to be key to your message. What you offer, I didn't talk about that, and I won't have time to talk about what you offer, because you all have your own individual services, what they are. So it's what you offer, they could actually be the difference too. And then your credibility, it's when all those three things, when you're very clear on telling people about those three things, that's where that value comes in. It's where that magic moment of actually all that marketing momentum comes in. So then you'll be able to actually say, what, this is what I do. This is how I do it. This is why I'm different. This is why you need me. And then you'll know exactly who you're attracting and who you're repelling. Because as I said before, repelling is definitely as important as attracting. You don't want any kind of tire kickers. You don't want any people. Look, we've all had people who've what's the word I'm looking for? Who've bled us dry. They keep asking us all those questions, and kind of know in the beginning of your mind, I shouldn't have really taken them on. But if you know what you are and you know what you're offering and you know how you're different, then you won't attract those kind of people. Because in the end of the day, people will, and this kind of is relevant to the price question, how you position yourself in terms of price. And if you have no other attributes at all to compare yourself with, people will judge you on price and price alone. And so you want to be able to go to market, not as an apple versus an apple or an apple versus a fruit. You want to be in a market of one. And that's really where that value that I talk about is a market of one, that there is absolutely nobody like you at all offering the services that you have. And you can easily do that by being very clear in your message. So value, then again, as I said, I just want to reiterate the point that value is not about you. Okay, so people like you, when I have this conversation with clients, they will turn it upon themselves, but it's not. It's about what you uniquely do for your customers. So it's what you offer, and you don't have to be cheaper, but you could be. You don't have to be faster, but you could be. You don't have to be better, but you could be, should be. But then if you're different, so people will all compete on those ones. And really, if you read any of the marketing books, and so I wonder with that book that you read, getting back to basics, where was it all about, how do you be cheaper, faster, or better? Because that's pretty much what we had. That's pretty much what a lot of marketing books and a lot of business books will tell you. So it'd be interesting to tell us, Roxy, after in the questions. But one of the key things for you to be different and to charge the prices that you quite rightly deserve to charge is how you're different and what makes you so different. And I really want to encourage you to not be shy about realizing what makes you so different. And because it's okay to say, I'm different because these are my values. I'm different because, well, my door is red. Even if you had something as simple as that, and then you build up on that one. So it's all about just being you. And just take a sip of water. And I just wanted to kind of illustrate that in a very simple example. So we looked at the message from where the havens of tranquility were, and they were all pretty much the same. They're all saying the same, but they didn't realize they were saying the same. So I just kind of put this in. Look, it's a bit of copy, it's a bit of message. It could be improved, but I put it in because I want to kind of highlight certain. I'll read it, and then I'm going to go back and just kind of show you different bits that you could easily use in your own messaging. So you will adore this charming 3-bedroom cottage with the most amazing panoramic views of Brook Lake. Wake up each morning to breathtaking views, and while you sip your black lungo or Earl Grey, you will find that built-up stress melting away. You love how much space you have. It's generous enough for 4 adults to move around comfortably without losing the warm, cozy atmosphere you'll get when you cuddle up by the log fire. Or how about pouring a glass of wine at the end of the day, placing them on the stone hearth and playing some good traditional board games. When you want a place that is a mere 1 hour from Dublin, yet want to really recharge your batteries, book a stay at Brookside Lodge. Call and chat with Denise today or book online now. At Brookside Lodge, relaxation is guaranteed. So I just want to break that up. But if you could say, and we could talk about it in the chat afterwards, but this is kind of a little bit more all-encompassing message. So I want to just I'm going to go back, as you'll see. So right straight away, what you'll see in this one is that there's charming is a lovely word to always use in your copy. Oops, I'm going ahead of myself. The 3 bedrooms, you know exactly what it is, right? So features and amazing panoramic views. Again, features, you get to see it. So you can kind of start to see it in your own mind. My panoramic view of Brook Lake could be very different than yours, right? I'm seeing Lake Como. Somebody else could be seeing a lake in Cavan. But again, this is all up into interpretation. So when you wake up each morning to breathtaking views, again, wonderful. When you sip your black lungo or Earl Grey, they're dotted in specifically. So if people don't understand what a black lungo is, or an Earl, they don't really like Earl Grey, that means then you're repelling certain people, right? So that you're not, it's not your normal place where you have breakfast tea. So this is where you kind of start attracting different people, and then you'll find that built up stress melting away. Again, you're feeling that sense of tranquility without saying it. This one here gives you more features, cozy enough for 4 adults, tells you a little bit more about it. Your message is still there. You're telling people that it's cozy, but it's still big enough for 4 adults. And then of course, then the wine at the end of the day, it depends whether you want just have a couple. So more language in there about your messaging. Here's more messaging. If you want to place it as a mere 1 hour from Dublin, it tells you exactly how far it is. You don't have to travel very far, but you want to recharge your batteries, book a stay. And then that all important call to action, where a lot of people kind of miss out on the call to action in their messaging. So even though like you want to actually, you want to say people, you want to say what you do and very clear, like you need to kind of tell people how to connect with you. So this is really where all that differentiation comes in. So there's no havens of tranquility, but you know that you're going to have a lovely time here. So there's bits where you repel people, there's bits where you attract people. And I just wanted to kind of throw this in because I know it's a little bit of copy, but it's a bit broken up, within the slides. But if you saw it written down, it's actually only like 4 paragraphs as opposed to the other 1 paragraphs. So this is where like your messaging includes all of the content that you have and the copy that you have. So it's not just a one-liner. So I talked with a girl. Just on Friday, and she's like talking to me about taglines, and she's like, "Oh, it's all great. Uniquely you, uniquely me." And I was like, "That's lovely. That's really nice as a slogan. It's really nice. But what does it actually mean?" So sometimes we overcomplicate things when it comes to our messaging. And sometimes we complicate things by saying that we need to have like helping you communicate a message and build a community of raving fans, or we need to have like, overcomplicate things. But if you started with, say, that kind of 4 paragraphs of that text, like that we just had for that tourist place, you could easily break that down into like, into 1 paragraph and make it so easy. But in saying that, you could still have those 4 paragraphs as your message, because they're interesting, right? I'm not saying that those ones are particularly interesting, but they're interesting. And really that's what people want. So when people say you don't really need to have like, 25 sentences, what you need to have is interesting stuff. You need to have an interesting message that people can relate to. So it doesn't matter if it's 6 words, 26 words, or 66 words, as long as it's interesting. And I think then people will actually understand it, because a confused mind never buys. So you need to own your own message. And really that's what I want to say. So this is a time to look at it, be different, because it is going to be different when we jump to the other side of this pandemic. So that's really it. This one here, I just kind of threw in. So once you have like your, when you have your U factor, but like the X factor, I can't really use that, right? Simon Cowell come down and we like a ton of bricks. But when you have the U factor, it makes, and what makes you different, then you can go out everywhere with it, wherever that's relevant, I suppose. Like, so these are all like, few types of marketing channels. And I know that Ruth is going to talk more, and so too is Stephen. So I won't talk about them, but like it just makes things so much easier when you've got a message that and you don't need to know it, like, where's my mouse? You don't need to know it word for word. Like you don't need, that's the thing about when you have a message, you don't need to know it word for word. It's not a script. It's something that comes from you. And actually then you'll be able to share it with your team so they can use different words, but the meaning is the same. So I hope that makes sense. And the credibility and expertise, yeah, that one is probably in the wrong spot, but like the credibility and expertise isn't really for you, it's for your customer. Again, what you offer, whatever your services are, then you need to kind of think about them. Like maybe it's your process that's different. Maybe it's your methods that's different. So that could actually really, really work in terms of helping you be different. Value is just so important. Really want you to, like, if there's one thing, and I've said it 100 times on this message, but I've said it 100 times simply because I want you to own your own message. And confuse mind member buys. So if you go back to the moral of the story, when you advertise, my friends, make sure you have the goods. It is important that you have the goods, because you don't want to be the rabbit that will be gobbled up. You want to be the lion out there roaring with the right amount of stuff to back you up. So my question to you is, will you be a rabbit or will you be a lion? I always wanted to do that, like, on the Zoom. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to decide your U factor. What is it? I want you to own your own message, and I want you to communicate that message everywhere that's relevant. And I know Ruth is going to talk to us about that a little bit. So you don't need to go off with the masses. It's just really where it's relevant and where people that you know that you want to talk to are there. So that's your mission, should you choose to accept it. And I really should have that, music in it. Should have arranged that, Andrew. I just threw this in not as not as a there is a 3-part webinar that I did kind of expanding on this. It's a free webinar. I didn't put the link in, Andrew, but I'll happy to share the link if people are interested in it. So we did a 3-part webinar back last week. The replay is there, and it kind of builds a little bit more on the communicating your message, builds a little bit more on the community of raving fans. So if you're interested, I can certainly share the link. And then that's it. I just want you to, there's all the kind of social media stuff. So I'm on Facebook, of course I am, Twitter, yes I am, LinkedIn and Instagram as well. So probably, and I'm really looking forward to Ruth's tips as well to build myself up on those platforms. But that's it. It's just a brief message on introduction, getting to understand your message. So thank you so much for your time.